I guess the only thing I can say is that it hasn't been disproved. And there are people who believe that when you have a bank crises like we did with SVB and some of the others, that the weakness of the, I mean, it's really in many ways it's an anti-bank play, and the weakness of the bank shows up the strength of Bitcoin, and it's done very, very well this year.
Yeah, listen, we f***ed up.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, it was actually crazy. Bitcoin looked like it was starting to get rejected at that level, right? We know that right now we're sitting at that critical resistance. We're trying to break through. We fell all the way down here to around $29,000 even, and yet Bitcoin still was able to pump back up again today. So what I want to talk about is what a lot of people are essentially calling the biggest crypto bull cycle potentially being upon us. Now, fundraiser Dan Tapiro is even making statements saying that he could see Bitcoin hitting a $10 trillion market cap, which would actually put the price of Bitcoin anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000. Now, the question is, are we getting too bullish now, right? Because if we do have a look right here, you could see we are at the top of this blue area, right? And we said anything above this in the short term could be meaning that we're getting a little bit overheated, just like everything below here meant that it was a fire sale, essentially, right? So lots of things we need to talk about. I'm feeling pretty excited myself, but of course we do have the SEC. Now, I'm sure you've heard what's going on with Gary Gensler continuing to clamp down, hitting Bittrex, right? And to make matters worse, it's not all going to be smooth sailing. You have the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, basically saying that if they continue to have this sort of vague non-clarification of how they're going to, essentially regulate this stuff, then Coinbase is threatening that they'll just move across seas. They'll actually exit the US, right? So that's not good for the innovation over here. And also, guys, there is a Stablecoin Act, which is slated for legislation tomorrow. So lots of crazy things going on, guys. So if that sounds good to you, you know what to do if you're not subscribed. Also, Russia, experimental cryptocurrencies with international trade. Interesting. But before we move on, guys, I just wanted to talk about Bitcoin Miami because, yes, I will be there. And it is from May 18th to the 20th. So you still have about a month if you're interested in going. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, well, first of all, the ticket prices are going to actually increase in 3 days. But also, I have been to, I don't want to say like hundreds of conferences, but I've been to a lot of conferences in the past 8 years. And, Consensus, it's fun. Neo DevCon was fun. But Bitcoin Miami, it was hands down the best one I've ever been to. And I highly suggest that if you're ever going to go to one Bitcoin conference ever, you definitely need to go to Bitcoin 2023. It's really, really amazing. It's in Miami Beach. If you've ever been there, it's crazy, crazy. They have all these parties, obviously big speakers like Michael Saylor and Arthur Hayes. And I just wanted to let you guys know this because I do actually have a code if you want to get 10% off. Oh, and by the way, they're having an after party at this place, the Oasis. I went here. It's freaking amazing. It was like such a great experience. I highly suggest you guys go if you can. And like I said, if you guys are paying, I'm just going to super quick. I know if you guys want to skip to the next part, but for anyone who is interested in going, you can use the code ZOMBIE. And I want to just show you how this works because it's a little weird. So what you want to do is you actually want to add it to your cart first. And then you want to view your cart, right? So then you go to checkout. So you can see right here, this general admission pass, right, is $8.49. So basically you just enter zombie, right, at checkout and you apply and you'll see, there you go. So now there's 10% off. So if you guys are interested in going, I would absolutely love to see you guys at Bitcoin Miami. I'm not, I'm not trying to over promote this or anything. I'm just telling you, it is really fun. Okay, so if you're ever going to go to one, go to that one. If you want, you can use the link below in the description. It'll take you right to it, but make sure you enter that code to get 10% off. So that being said, guys, let's dive in. Let's have a look at what's going on. But yeah, I'm telling you, it's really, really fun. That's all I'm going to say. You guys are going to miss out if you don't go. So please, even if you're just going to stop by for the after party, just, for $60, you got to go. You got to go. So Having a look at what's going on right now, I'm actually surprised that we didn't even come down here and retest this area at 28,000. In fact, if you just draw this, what we actually did was we tested this little high bounce as support, right? We came up here, we wicked, we came down. So what I'm looking at right now, and I'm not going to get too crazy because, I mean, really Bitcoin hasn't really done much in the past week, and I have talked about these levels time and time again, but I have to stress that yes, we are approaching this very critical area, but if we just zoom in, even though this is technically a red candle, this is a pretty bullish weekly candle thus far. Now, of course, understand that it's only Tuesday, right? It's only Tuesday, so anything can happen. But, as you can see down here, whenever you have these long, tails on these things, right? And you see they just bounce right up like that. Look at this, come down here, bounce right back up. That is showing that buyers are stepping in. So as the price is falling, you're seeing people FOMOing into it, right? So this is actually sending a signal to me. Now, like Ali had pointed out, we are at that very critical resistance area, right? And we did talk about the fact that if we can't get over the $30,000 to $32,000 area, then yes, we're probably going to retest down at around these maybe 25 to 27K area. He also pointed out that 770,000 addresses bought 360K Bitcoin at around that area. So the VPVR also is very, very massive. And, just kind of like draw it to explain it to a 5-year-old, like Don Alt said, one thing that could happen, right? Because you had everybody calling for these 10K calls down here, is we actually, skyrocket all the way up to something like 46K before maybe pulling back, freaking everyone out, major retest, and then we continue to the upside, right? Same thing that Stock Money Lizards is pointing out. If we look at the 38.2% Fibonacci retracement being the cycle bottom, you could see that if history was to repeat, this would actually put Bitcoin at around 49K, which is interesting because Don Alt is also pointing up at those areas. And, if we just, again, I just want to point out here, have a look at where, this takes us right here. That takes us to about 53K, with this big move out of the falling wedge. So, regardless of what happens in the short term, guys, almost everything right now is pointing towards the fact that we are entering the Bitcoin spring, the Bitcoin summer, right? And you can even see right here, we finally got this flashing on the super guppy. And, historically speaking, I've even kept it circled. You can see the last time right here, we went from red to neutral. I mean, basically major rally. Last time we went from red to neutral, huge rally. I mean, we actually had a little mini market, right? We had a bull bear, but macro, it was a giant bull. So yeah, I think, again, looking for that money flow coming into the green. And yeah, I mean, we already had the wave edge here. Everything is really looking good. Obviously, if you guys want to learn how to trade, check out the tutorials and stuff below, popping up above. But Tech Dev, also pointed out, look at the similarities of the total cap. So, history doesn't necessarily exactly repeat, but it often does rhyme. And, I know this is hard to believe, but we are getting close to the Bitcoin halving. The Bitcoin halving is less than a year away now. I mean, it's 335 days from now, roughly, right? Obviously this is an average estimate. So pretty crazy times, guys, when you consider where we could end up going. And there was a new report that came out from Bernstein that says macro catalysts are lining up for Bitcoin. The biggest crypto bull cycle is upon us. FTX's collapse was the catalyst for a new bullish cycle in the crypto markets. The crypto exchange's demise cleaned up the final tranche of toxic crypto leverage and taught digital asset investors the importance of decentralization and self-custody wallets. Macro catalysts are aligning. Any potential dislocation, whether on the bank's credit side or the sovereign side, positions Bitcoin perfectly as a safe haven asset. So this is according to Bernstein. Now, if you didn't see, even in a recent interview, billionaire Howard Marks, who, by the way, manages, as you can see right here, $170 billion for clients, has actually come out and said, even though he doesn't know a lot about Bitcoin, he does have to give credit where credit is due.
Have current events helped highlight the inherent differences of Bitcoin compared to other assets claiming a crypto title in your eyes?
I'm not necessarily close enough to the action tray to be able to answer your question empirically. But clearly, as you say, Bitcoin in 2023 has done much better. I wrote a memo in January of 21 called Something of Value about my time in captivity with my son Andrew during the pandemic. Our families lived together for 3 months, and we had some great discussions, as you can imagine. Uh, and it was around April, I think it was April of 20, that Andrew told me he had bought Bitcoin, and I think he paid 5 or 6,000. So clearly it went up 15 times, then it went down 2/3, but it still shows a 5x gain from his purchase. And I guess the only thing I can say is that it hasn't been disproved. And there are people who believe that when you have a bank crises like we did with SVB and some of the others, that the weakness of it's really in many ways it's an anti-bank play, and the weakness of the bank shows up the strength of Bitcoin, and it's done very, very well this year. For one thing, we can't extrapolate from what we see in the United States. There are a lot of people who live in places where they don't trust the financial system or have access to it, and they don't exactly want everybody in authority to know how much money they have. It does seem that there are good uses for some coins, and Bitcoin seems to be so far the one in the lead.
But it gets even crazier. And I don't want to scare everyone, because I know when everyone was bearish, it was time to be bullish. Now everybody's bullish. Is it time to be bearish? I could say it's time to be cautious. But as I said, we are in that area where the cycle is about to lead us into the halving. And we know, historically speaking, what happens. Even if you look at what happened in 2018, right, 2019, where we went up to 14 and came all the way back down to 3. Yes, technically it was a mid-cycle rally that had a double bottom. So I guess if you want to say that could happen again, then theoretically Bitcoin could go back down to 15,000, maybe, just to test it. But I highly, highly doubt we're going to go any lower than that. And the likelihood of going back down to that level is honestly getting smaller and smaller as time passes by. And macro guru and fund manager Dan Tapiro says that he sees the market cap of Bitcoin potentially reaching up to $10 trillion, somewhere between 5 to 8 trillion. Do I think it could go to 10? Absolutely. I've been saying this for a while, and I think $300,000 to $500,000 is a good solid place for Bitcoin. So, if you're looking at buying Bitcoin at 30,000 and you're saying to yourself, well, this is a little too expensive, it just rallied 100%, and then you consider that it could go to 300 to 500,000, it doesn't seem like such a bad deal at this point, right? He also says that the overall crypto market cap could soar over 600%. He says, my original thought was that the space was going to go to 10 trillion in value. That's from 300 billion. It was a 30x in 10 years. He says, I think that's going to be wrong now. I think the space is probably going to go much higher than 10 trillion because it's starting to encompass everything, right? It's not just money, store of value, programmable contracts, DeFi, NFTs, stablecoins. It's literally everything. And as time goes by, we are becoming more and more and more digital and more and more and more automated, right? I think a lot of people would agree on that. Well, according to Morgan Creek's Digital's Mark Yusko, it's been a long time coming, but with the recent wave of global liquidity, it looks like the season is turning. He believes that crypto summer has indeed begun, apparently skipping spring altogether. Put bluntly, he says the sellers are gone. The Bitcoin hash rate stands at an all-time high, as does the number of wallets with greater than 0.1 Bitcoin. Transaction size and volumes are approaching an all-time high as well. And just to talk about the macro conditions, China has printed $1 trillion since October. Japan, another couple $100 billion. The Fed put $300 billion back on their balance sheet, so we've got $1.5 trillion of liquidity sloshing around. And it turns out people buy the things that they like. And I think, as we're seeing, a lot of people clearly like Bitcoin and crypto. And huge whales moving, massive whale move, 9,819 Bitcoin, worth about $296 million moving on the network. You're seeing the activity pick up again. You're seeing the volume come back in, right? You're seeing the interest in the space. And, this was actually pointed out by CoinShares, Bitcoin led the way as digital asset products saw inflows for a fourth week in a row last week. So Bitcoin had 104, making up the bulk of the 114, but it's seen inflows of 310 million over the past 4 weeks. They said, we believe that this is a flight to safety by investors fearful of the ongoing traditional finance challenges, right? So I think the moment that everyone has been waiting for, talking, and just a side note, like this whole, like they're going to ban Bitcoin. They're not going to ban Bitcoin. It's not going to happen. There are too many big players in the US as well that are interested financially and structurally in the success of Bitcoin, right? It's not going to happen. Could they attempt to continue to choke it off with these banks? Yes, but I believe there will always be solutions. Like even Florida, for example, says that they'll just create their own system, right? If the CBDCs get imposed. So don't forget, especially when you're speaking about the US, the individual states do have, their right to participate or not to participate, without getting too much into history here. So I do think that not just in the US, but globally, we are seeing it. And just to kind of point it out, guys, if you look at it, everybody thinks that the US is the center of everything, maybe because the dollar, right? For now, right? But if you actually look at global crypto percentages, like, transactions, 85% of it is taking place outside of the US. That's literally a statistic. You can Google that. So the world is a very large place. And overall, I believe that they are, in fact, looking towards cryptocurrencies. Now, let's talk about the negatives, because we knew there was going to be some negatives. Today's going to be a little bit longer of a video, you guys can tell. So, Gary Gensler, today we charge crypto asset trading platform Bittrex and its co-founder and former CEO. Today's actions yet again make plain that the crypto markets suffer from a lack of regulatory compliance, not a lack of regulatory clarity. Bitlord says, you are corrupt, using your position to protect the banking industry, selecting cases to build a narrative rather than actually addressing anything of use. What did you do to protect the investors when the stock market collapsed 80%, right? And it's funny because all these guys that Gensler and friends have gone after, it's not any of the ones that actually hurt or affected anybody. They were having meetings with FTX, right? But then here we go. We're finding Kraken, Bittrex, Coinbase, probably some of the most compliant, right? But what about all these other guys? So, again, saying they're going to protect the investor, and meanwhile, you have the CEO of Coinbase saying that, anything is on the table, including relocating or whatever is necessary. I think the US has the potential to be an important market for crypto, but right now we are not seeing the regulatory clarity that we need. I think in a number of years, if we don't see that regulatory clarity emerge in the US, we may have to consider investing more elsewhere in the world, essentially relocating, right? Warren Davidson, though, you know what? And this is why, like I said, this is the Bitcoin civil war. They are going to come out, and guys like Warren Davidson said, to correct a long series of abuses, I'm introducing legislation that removes the chairman of the SEC and replaces the role with an executive director, right? And you can come over here and, see that, he said Gensler views himself as an enforcer, repeatedly claiming that he is the cop on the beat. We also have SEC Commissioner Pierce, known as Crypto Mom, being vocal as well. She says, rather than embracing the promise of new technology as we have done in the past, here we propose to embrace stagnation, force centralization, urge expatriation, and welcome extinction of new technology. I don't know why, but that felt like a mouthful to say. That was a lot of big words on the channel here. But look, she makes a point. In addition to ironing this t-shirt, which republishes code from a comment letter, will I need to register as an exchange before wearing it? It depends, per the SEC's latest release, to which she replies, I dissent, right? So there are people that are coming, out and sticking up for, the space in general, going against Gensler. I mean, some people are even calling him out right here. How about when you promoted this? Was this a security?
You could create Uber or Lyft on top of a blockchain technology today. Well, maybe in 5 years you could. It would have the performance. Sylvia McCally's Algorand, who's a Turing Award winner at MIT that I work with. Sylvia's got a great technology that has the performance. You could create Uber on top of it.
Will you be charging Gary Gensler for promoting Algorand or just other people who did that? Congratulations, this move really protects investors. You have zero credibility, as you guys could see, not being taken very well on Twitter right here. So this wasn't, a jab at Algorand. That's not the point. The point is like, oh, when he does it, it's okay. But when we do it, it's a problem, right? So yeah, guys, keep in mind though that we do have tomorrow the Stablecoin Bill. We have the U.S. House Financial Services Committee publishing a draft, which is, it happened on April 15th. They're meeting on it tomorrow. But Jeremy Allaire, the Circle CEO, says that this is an extraordinary moment for the future of the dollar. And he does say that there are some challenging issues that do need to be addressed. CBDCs, for example, happen to be mentioned in this. It's a 72-page draft slated for hearing tomorrow, Wednesday, which aims to make the Federal Reserve the regulatory oversight of non-banking institutions which issue stablecoins like Tether and USDT. Now, I'm not necessarily against this. I mean, if you really think about it, understand from their perspective, if you're going to be using something that's claiming to be backed by the dollar, it really does technically need to be backed by the dollar, right? I mean, now what is the dollar backed by? Let's not get into that topic, but they do talk about the bill proposes that foreign operators must be mandated to register with theirs, and if you fail to register, you could be penalized with up to $1 million and 5-year imprisonment sentence. So this is just basically trying to legitimize at least the stablecoin aspect of the space, which, I mean, if you think about it, makes sense. Although it is funny how they need to make sure that they are registered and their dollars are backed up one-to-one with money in the bank. But can the bank actually prove that their dollars are in there one-to-one? No, they can't. But we know how they play the game. We know how they play the system. And just kind of ending on this, Russian central banks have given the okay for an experimental use of crypto in international trade. So could this be more crypto adoption incoming? Now, obviously, this isn't Bitcoin specifically, but it is interesting to see all of these moves over to crypto. And again, like I said, I've been looking at this CBBI historical chart. And as we can tell, looking at all of these percentages, the highest we got 63% on the RUPL, NUPL, and 56% on the PUL multiple. But for the most part, guys, Pi cycle top, okay, 46, which actually, as you guys may have remembered, turned out to be a call we should have paid attention to. I'll definitely pay a lot closer attention to that this time. Hey, nobody's perfect, right? But at the end of the day, overall, I think we have much more room to grow. If you're worried, if you think we're going to go down to 10K, maybe you can wait for 10K. I don't know. I don't think it's coming. I wouldn't want to be sitting on the sideline right now, but that's just my opinion. So that's it for me today, guys. Thanks for coming back to the channel. Friendly reminder, again, if you're going to go to Bitcoin 2023, I recommend that you definitely do go. Because if you're going to go to one conference all year, like out of all of them, Consensus, it's happening in a couple weeks. Consensus is pretty cool. Not bad, but this is fun. This is Miami Beach. It's partying. It's a good time. As you guys know, most of the time I don't really speak a lot at conferences. I usually just go to hang out. I don't really like speaking. I don't really think I'm better than anyone. I like to just hang out with people. So if you're going, please come, stop by, say hello. 3 days until tickets increase. Use the link below in the description if you want to go right away, or you can just, zombie at checkout. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. Hope you're having an awesome week so far. Really cool things happening. I mean, full on confirmation right here. I would highly doubt that we see us flip back into the red. I just don't think that's going to happen. And eventually what you want to start looking for is, now you're kind of waiting for that flip into the green. And once we flip into the green, well, that's pretty much full on confirmed, guys. I mean, generally speaking, when we flip into the green, we stay in the green for months and months and months, sometimes even a year, right? So that's it for me again. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. Until next time, stay crypto. My name's K-Dub. This is Crypto Zombie. And if you do want to learn how to trade, I know it's boring right now, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Get subscribed, turn on bell notifications, and make sure that you watch this tutorial right here, right now. Until next time, you know what to do. Peace out.